First, I want to thank Shay and Duquesne for having me. I was involved last year and enjoyed everything that I was a part of during the course. And pleased to be here. Just so I get a little bit of an understanding who I'm talking to, how many chefs in the room? Okay. How about restaurant employees, just institutional staff, any employee-wise? Okay. Other owners of businesses? Okay. So I share the former and the latter. I'm a little bit of both. I do have an executive chef. I couldn't be in the kitchen and do all the other things I do at the same time. But fortunately, we have some good practices that we put into play, and I'm here to share with you. One of the things that I first comes to mind when I see the words trend or fad as it applies to sustainability, I really have to kind of shudder because I think that neither is the case. It's really, to me, a necessary evolution, and I think at some point, many of us, myself, for example, I grew up in an Italian household. My grandma Greco lived next door, and I never could understand why she never was dragging her garbage can down to the corner, to the road, and putting $1 on it or whatever, like I did every Wednesday night for Thursday trash. Her electric bill was like $17, and she had no trash, and she lived very frugally, in my opinion, but she took her eggshells, her coffee grounds, her compost matter, and it went into the garden. Back in that day, you could burn your papers. Can't do that anymore, but I think we need to get back there, and there's a lot of things that on a much grander scale than just in your home that we're talking about here. So let's get right into it. There we go. Just a quick couple accolades, not to toot our own horn here, but at Bella Sera back in 2007, I determined that it was a necessary part of our future growth to become certified green. I'd been around Mario Batali's, met him personally, and heard about his restaurants being certified green, and I ran into some people at the show in Chicago, the restaurant show, and I first met, and I'll tell you, I'm not a paid employee or anything of the Green Restaurant Association. I guess you could say I'm a local ambassador on a variety of levels, because I believe that they're the ones I chose to have us be certified by. Once I did some background investigation, decided that their credibility was there, and so we pursued, and I saw the other establishments that had used, the Rick Bayless's restaurant, some of the bigger chefs, and a lot more as time has gone on. When we jumped on this opportunity, it was a tricky process, but it's gotten a lot easier. These are all really, I don't know that any one is more important than the other, they just happen to have numbers by them. The environment, obviously, legislation we know is coming, educating, cutting costs, positive publicity, and all this stuff happens rather quickly, I might add. The amount of compost that we've been able to save is pretty unbelievable. I mean, in terms of the statistics, I think part of our position, there was four legs to our beginning. First of all, we had to get rid of everything styrofoam, and it's funny because now to this day, when I drink something out of styrofoam, I almost cringe because I almost don't. A, I don't want it. And then B, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. So that was pretty easy for us to get rid of. But local sourcing and a lot of this stuff, it does take time and it takes effort. But it's amazing because we have a company that we use for our compost. So all of our vegetable matter, plant matter goes into a compost bin outside like a dumpster. It gets picked up once a week. It gets broadcasted out into a field, and 3 years later it becomes certified organic mulch or fertilizer. Up until 2 years ago, when my mom had a farm in Greene County, she bought that very same fertilizer to treat the plants and fertilize the plants that we were growing, mostly basil and herbs. So it's kind of a neat loop that we created. Legislation, I mean, I think that we're all aware that things are going to be coming. Compost or recycling is going to become mandatory. I'm surprised in some communities it's not. That's just something that's going to happen, and it's going to continue to happen. Cutting costs, the easiest one is the fryer oil. We take our fryer oil, and the company picks it up every couple weeks, and we get paid for it. And that's something that didn't happen before. We have to actually lock it because there's people going around taking fryer oil and converting it to money, and I think up to 50 cents a gallon. Compost dumpster I spoke about, it accepts cardboard and paper. It's amazing what happens when you put things where they belong. I've used this example before. We used to have an 8-yard dumpster, the largest size you can have. One dumpster, everything went into that dumpster. When we broke it apart and put it into compost matter, a 2-yard dumpster, a recycler, and a regular garbage, each 2 yards. So right away we're down to 6 yards invariably, but each of those were never full. And every Saturday night we had to do the dumpster dance, we called it. We had to smash everything down to get it to fit into the regular dumpster. After we broke everything up and put it where it belonged, in short order there was nothing, not one of them were ever full. So it's amazing when you put things where they belong, what happens. So when you have food matter going on top of cardboard broken down, it flattens that, and it's all plant matter, so it's all going into the right place. The flow valve regulators on the faucets, that's a big thing. We cut our water usage pretty much in half. It's just regulators that prevent the amount of water from coming out of there at a thrust. I mean, even on the dish head, you still need a little bit of pressure. It still applies that pressure, but it doesn't do so with using as much water. Motion sensors everywhere that's an unmanned area for us in the bathrooms and storage and whatnot is all censored so that the lights come off and on. Window tinting, we did that throughout the building. It's been an incredible savings in terms of the electric bill. I just spent $27,000 on LED lights throughout my entire building. It's a 20,000 square foot facility. The return on that investment should be anywhere from between 3 and 3.5 years, just based on so it not only, that's not a requirement, but it's something we did that will allow us to actually gain more points. And the maintenance of the air compressors on a regular basis, that's pretty ongoing for us. It's I don't know, 40, 50 filters on the roof, and it takes those guys several days to fix that, but we do it twice a year. So here's some pictures. This is the outside where we keep our fryer oil. There's, again, multiple companies that do this, but we know that we're putting the stuff in the right place and it's getting utilized appropriately, and the company's great and professional to work with. Oh, is that me? Wow. It sounded like somebody cocking a 45 or something. Maybe a 25, a little smaller. Anyway, this is what we're talking about from Ag Recycle. I think that's me looking like Satan or something on the right over there. I don't know. I'm really happy about compost, I guess, that day. We're doing Wednesday, I'm doing a little group of Kinder Care in Peter McMurray. 45 students, little kids are coming from Kinder Care. It's about our 5th year, we do a little 3 round robin thing. So I'll take them to the garden and the compost pile. I live adjacent to my building, so I have my own little compost next door. The Bella Sera has the official yellow one, that's because it's much larger, it needs to be larger. But we'll do some things with the kids in the class, and they seem to enjoy the garden as much as they do in the kitchen and cooking and stuff. So they're going to make their own lunch tomorrow. Here's the regulators. I don't want to bore you with some of these details, but they're certainly worth checking into, even in a residential capacity. Yeah, it says use only 1/2 gallon to 1.5 gallons of water per minute. So, but it still generates plenty of pressure. I think it's surprised. So it says on average 15 less. We've actually found that to be a little bit higher, probably closer to 25. Here's some of the motion sensors and the tinting on the rear windows. And the publicity. This is one of the things I actually didn't realize there was going to be an outcome of this, but it's certainly been beneficial. And I've not necessarily capitalized on it, but I've actually allowed myself to, with good conscience, use it in our collateral material. It wasn't, again, the #1 reason by any stretch for us to become green, to say that we were green, but once we started garnering a little bit of attention, it became common for us to get magazine requests for articles or appearances, quotes, things, and at some point become somewhat of a, I'd say, a leader on the topic, just because we kind of pioneered it. We were the first, when I opened my restaurant in Market Square, we were the very first green certified restaurants. The week of the G20 Summit, if you can remember back a few years ago, I think that was 2009, 2010. Phipps Conservatory and I kind of went we're neck and neck. I beat them by a day or two to get certified. So we kind of hold that distinction of being the first certified green restaurant in Pittsburgh. Carried the same principles and practices I did with the banquet hall. And again, it garnered a lot of attention. I found myself, though, not necessarily saying Bella Sera, a green restaurant. It was Bella Sera, great food, great service, and by the way, at the bottom, we're a green restaurant. And so that just little extra tag allowed people to feel comfortable. And as we know, people would definitely choose to eat in a sustainable restaurant over something that's not a standard restaurant. Again, some of the articles and things have been written. Customer loyalty, I mean, green practices, I think, to me, is huge. I think there's an appreciation. I had a statistic that said that in 79% of consumers would prefer to dine at a certified green restaurant, given the choice over another restaurant. 78-79% would choose to eat at a sustainable or green restaurant. That to me, it says if you're neck and neck with somebody next door, your prices are the same, the quality is assumably the same, and you have green standard practices in your establishment, that you would get the nod and people would tend to want to visit you more. Local sourcing, it's a big deal for us. It's a difficult process. I mean, I just got back from Italy. I go there multiple times a year. It's amazing how they don't even think twice about what goes on the plate. If it's not legit, if it's not real, it's not going on the plate. I mean, the tomatoes were gorgeous. Everything I ate all the time, everywhere I go, is because they don't allow genetically modified foods to be put on their plates. They just don't. Nothing. Everything is grown within typically 10 to 25 miles from where they are. For us, it's a little more difficult. Again, we're seasonal in Pennsylvania, so we can only get certain things at certain times a year. But we're starting to pull things off of our menu off season. In wintertime, strawberries and fruit salad and things that happen in January, February. I think there's some sense of what's the word? Us hardworking Americans say we work all very hard. If I want strawberries in January, darn it, I'm going to have strawberries in January, and not really thinking about the outcome of where that strawberry has to come from, where it's being produced, how far it has to go to get to where we are. So it takes a little different mindset. The local sourcing is relationships with farmers and people. I have a guy that's grown a certain greens, but I know that come December he's not going to have those. We're going to put up as many as we can in the freezer. And visiting farmers markets. We always promote the farmers markets. There's a new one in Peters Township I'm going to go do. I typically like to go to the farmers market, take the food that they're producing at that time and grill it right in front of people. I talked to Christina French from Table Magazine the other day about doing something right in the garden. I think it's amazing to be able to take a grill, put it in the middle of the garden, and just start picking things, chopping it up, and putting it on the grill. And I think those things are very, gives people insights as to what they could be doing. Here's a lady that was growing lettuce for us. This was a beautiful bib lettuce. They unfortunately had some troubles. They had to stop producing, and so we're looking for somebody else. But that's pretty much on a weekly basis they can produce that kind of food. And that was out of a greenhouse in Venetia, PA. This was my mom's farm. She was one of the ones that kind of got, approached by the oil and gas world. So in good conscience, knowing that they were going to be fracking anywhere around their property once they sold the land, I couldn't obviously grow my food out there, but we grew as much as we possibly could. Mostly herbs, rosemary, fresh herbs, everything we could. Rooftop, I mean, if you're in the city, obviously, you have opportunities to get on the roof. I know that I was at Google, and I know that they do some things on their rooftop, and it's doable. Again, more pictures of my mom's farm. I miss it out there. She lives up by Nemaco and Woodlands now and doesn't have nearly the acreage. So, but we found that with the basil plants, just one basil plant over the course of a season would produce actually 1 quart of basil pesto, which can freeze and stay up to a year. And again, good press coverage on the basil pesto. Staff awareness, this is a big one too. I mean, it's funny how your staff, if trained and educated properly, how they will embrace this. and make this become part of their daily operations. I mean, we have 3 garbage cans that every time somebody throws something away, they actually have to think about where to put it. And so it becomes a challenge, I'm not gonna lie. But with time and with their energy and efforts and teamwork, we actually all work together to make this happen. This is not just a top-down kind of directive that says you need to put this there, because left to their own devices, people may, behind your back, put something where it doesn't belong. So if we end up with plastic bottles in our composter, not only do we get fined, it's not the right place for it. So to have that belief system in place where everybody's taken stock and invested in it, that's the only way to me that really works. So this is in a nutshell some of the green steps towards certification. The recycling program, obviously, the use of styrofoam, the energy efficient motion sensors, composting, everything we just talked about, paper conservation. Even the business cards, post-consumer, all the stationery, what little stationery we use these days. We have notes on our emails about reprinting and printing unnecessarily. Why does that do that every once in a while? Man. So here's the garbage. So we've color coded them. They actually match the colors of our bins, the dumpsters outside. So you have green is for garbage, blue is the obvious recycle go-to, and the yellow is the compost matter. These stats are, you know, an average restaurant produces over 100,000 pounds of garbage a year. 95% of it can be recycled, and that's what I said about the change. By downsizing and putting things where they belong, it actually works. I've often thought about some wine bottle recycling. I see companies now cutting bottles, beer bottles and whatnot, you know, to make glassware out of it. I thought that would be a neat alternative, or at least take a good, to me, what's a valuable item, a wine bottle. If you ever felt an empty wine bottle, instead of, you know, the best place to put it would be actually put more wine back in it, or water, or some other substance, and not destroy it. The next best thing would be put it in the recycler. It goes through a system and a process and comes back in some form some other time later down the road, if ever. But at the same time, it doesn't biodegrade. So I think putting wine back in the bottle, to me, is the most, I'm working on an idea for that now. Disposables, as a caterer, we're often presented with, you know, providing plateware and necessary cups and all that. You know, I suffered the other day at the Vintage Grand Prix because we're using all of our corn-based cups, and I looked over to my stack of employee cups in my 5-gallon water cooler, and the cups had just shrunk down to kind of a pile of corn plastic or some combination thereof. So, you know, there are certain things you have to remember, that corn-based products don't hold hot liquids well, obviously, or they don't stand the heat very well. So just modifying that, putting everything in the shade, an hour later we were back in business. But little things. All of our paper products, again, are eco-friendly stuff. And again, we're using little, if any. I mean, business cards, certainly. Almost all of our bills are paid online now. I don't even know the last time we ordered stationery. When we did, we were buying post-consumer recycled paper. Again, not working for the GRA, but just kind of endorsing everything they stand by. They're a nonprofit based in Boston. Those guys are willing and able to answer any of our questions at all times. You're going to hear from somebody, Rebecca, locally on a much more grassroots level, what you can do with Sustainable Pittsburgh here. But I also have some brochures over there for the GRA if you're interested. It's been a wonderful experience, and like I said, they've been very supportive of everything we've done. And the cost annually has come back to us in spades, multiple times over. They'll do a little assessment and find out, this is if you were to consider getting certified. You know, the changes, talk to you about everything that needs to take place. I think one of the biggest things, I'd already built my building, so for me it wasn't going into a LEED certified situation, it was just doing things we could at the time. Had I known, I would have put the 1-gallon flush, you know, toilets in as opposed to standard stuff that we have. but we've done everything we can in certain other areas. And the cool thing about them is it's an ongoing process. You just don't get certified. We started out as a 1-star, which was 100 points. Then we moved to a 2-star and then ultimately a 3-star. But the criteria continues to change. So they want you to raise the bar internally as opposed to sitting on your laurels and say, 4 years ago we used, post-consumer in cards and everything else in certain categories. So this is the accumulation, the points in each category. Obviously the recycling, the styrofoam, those are cornerstones of the program, and ongoing education. This is available on their website. I don't know how many other 3-star restaurants there are out there. We're happy to have made that leap from 2 to 3. I don't know, to be perfectly honest, if we were catching our own rainwater and doing a lot of other things, we might be able to hit the 4-star mark, but there's not a lot out there. I would say that you'd almost have to build your restaurant around the green status at that point to make something like that happen. I think this is pretty much in a nutshell everything that we stand by. The mission of the negative environmental impact, making changes, and not, like I said, it's not a fad. When we have a lot of customers that know what we stand for, and I have a belief that we've gotten certain weddings and certain events based on our status as opposed to just being a regular caterer. So this is just some of the things. I did this presentation. This will tell you how timeless this is. A lot of this information came from a presentation I did in Las Vegas probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I looked through this and I said, I have to change literally next to none of this. So if this was a fad or a trend, I think this entire thing would have been updated and so on. So that's a testament to, I think, where this whole process is. So, certification, etc. Look how young my kids are. They're 9 and 13 now, and I think they're a little bit younger back then. But they have a great time in the garden. It's funny how much they know about food. Not only being the son of a chef, but also just by being out there and around the food and engaging them in the grocery store. We often just kind of challenge them, and they know the difference between bright light Swiss chard and what is it called? What is it called? Anybody know? Bright light Swiss chard? Wow. Okay, it's the ones with looks like rhubarb with the real bright stalks on it. Anyway, so we started our own growing, and a couple years ago in the wintertime, started in the sprouts and plants, and there's me doing the kinder care thing, which I'll be doing Wednesday with them. And they were happy. They're excited to come to Bella Sera, and they enjoy the day. That's pretty much it. That went quick. Did I do all right?
You're good.
Okay.
We're gonna take a couple questions.
I know I'm sweating like crazy. I'm not a great speaker, but I get up here and I get nervous. All right, is there anybody questions?
I actually have a comment on glass recycling. There is a method for glass recycling as well.
Oh, really?
It does crush the glass and become glass again.
I was talking to Pete from Perlay, and he talked about something like that they send it down. It's a grinder.
Some have a grinder, and there might be 1 or 2 in Pennsylvania that I know of, like the people who are going to actually manufacture glasses that come back to restaurants.
Yeah.
But you might have to fill up like a 30-ton dumpster or something
Right.
before they pick it up.
Yeah.
But you can make money off of it. I mean, it's, rather than, it's getting like the biodiesel.
Right, getting used again somewhere. Yeah, I just thought, I know so many people that make wine that I thought it would be neat if I could solicit 25 of my friends' restaurants in Pittsburgh to save their wine bottles and go around and pick them up once a week and take those bottles and sterilize them. I have a company, a group that would sterilize them and strip the labels and prepare them for winemakers and sell them for 50 cents instead of $1 they could buy online. So, yes?
What advice do you have for small businesses that, from restaurant business, that want to go grain? But I know sometimes initially the cost may be prohibitive. So how can maybe a catering company just start going grain?
Well, I think you're going to hear from Rebecca. She's smiling back there because that's right up her alley. She's going to talk either next or this afternoon about that on a very grassroots local level, how to make small changes. To me, I mean, the first thing is getting rid of the styrofoam. Start finding a way to find out how to recycle and separate your garbage a little bit. And even those little practices right away internally without telling anybody will give you kind of a little lunge forward and kind of incentivize people. You know, it's funny because we have to separate everything, so we have work buckets on the tables. All the kitchen guys, they have their prep bucket that they dump to. They know it's compost, they know where to put the matter now, but at the beginning, it was difficult. On any given day, I'd walk in there and find a plastic bottle inside the compost stuff or somewhere else, you know. But over time, everybody started to come together and just realize, you know, worms can't eat that. You know, that was the big thing. Can a worm eat that? If so, that's where it goes. And staples aren't tape, the things that they found on the boxes, so we had to kind of work a little bit. But I think some of the easiest things, the flow valve regulators are like $5 or $7. From one faucet, if you put on a faucet that's used regularly, a $5 regulator in 3, 4, 5 months, you have easily your money back, and you're well on your way to saving money. So I think it's baby steps at first, but making that commitment too. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. First, you mentioned forming relationships with local farmers. How did you initially do that?
Farmers markets. I went out to the markets on Wednesday, Thursday locally. I went and talked to the guys at Simmons Farm or whatever I could do just to get in front of. Usually there's a manager. I usually put somebody at the markets other than entry-level people that knows a little bit. Or just calling the farmer directly or going to see him. I know Matthew's Farm out in Dunningsville. You know, I went out to see him. It was the Day of the Day Matthews concert. I hadn't talked to the guy in 2 months, and I went to talk to him, and I said, you know, I'm getting ready to go to the concert. I have an hour to come out and grab some plants. He said, well, I'm going to Dave Matthews' concert too, because Dave Matthews, somebody contacted him, and he was the sustainable advocate at the show, right at the concert. So I thought it was pretty interesting. But yeah, those guys I think are more than excited to help. I mean, even if you didn't need some specialty ingredient, you know, item, for them to figure out. The biggest thing that we found is getting the stuff, because it's easy to get lazy as a chef or an owner. I say lazy, I don't mean that in the negative sense, but you know, you've got Cisco supplying you with paper towels and detergent and scrubbies and all the other things you need, and so what's the big deal of ordering 40 pounds of zucchini from them as opposed to going to a separate phone call, separate communication, separate delivery potentially. But we found that those guys, a lot of those farmers are doing co-ops with clients of their own. So he has 50 or 60 people, so I know every Tuesday and Thursday around 4 o'clock, he's coming past my neighborhood anyway. So for him to bring, you know, in the fall, he's bringing us, he calls, and I remember last year he was so irritated. We went out in the field, they had groundhogs had literally taken one bite out of 200, what do you call it, butternut squash. And a butternut squash at the farmer's market with one little blemish on it, which is 2 teeth mark in the front of it, don't sell well. I said, I don't care, I'm making butternut squash bisque. So it was good for him. We don't need to, we're not showcasing the stuff, they're not on display. So for us to be able to find things that, canned tomatoes, you know, at the end of the season when they're picking their last picking, we're taking all of those, processing them, and they're going into the freezer as diced tomato for bruschetta all over the winter. So, yeah, being creative, I think, is the best.
And then the other question I had was about communicating your green credentials. So you guys were fortunate to get some good press. I don't know if you pitched that or if that came organically, but you know, do you guys kind of actively advertise or promote to the public that we're green, or do you just kind of put it on the menu and kind of let them?
Yeah, it's there. I didn't actively promote it at all. I really didn't. It came to us, and I was surprised. I didn't really even think of that to be a byproduct of the whole process. I was doing it because it felt good, it felt right. I wanted my staff to be on board. I like being, I'd say the first at something, or at least pioneering things if I can. I mean, I'm not going to go out of my way to do it in every part of my life, but if I can, certainly I'm going to take that opportunity. But then once the calls started coming, I think my marketing company said, well, we need to mention this on a brochure. I didn't even know you were green. I've eaten at your restaurant for 2 years, I didn't know you were green. Let's tell the public that. So I think by creating that awareness for them, it just naturally evolved into something bigger. But I'm happy that it's there. If the press part of it wasn't there, I'd still be happy. So that's how I know that I'm doing. Go home tonight and feel good about that we're doing something positive, not for the money, not for the show. You know.
I'm curious how you make decisions when you are sourcing something locally and you cannot get it either due to crop failure or everyone else
it's tough. We do the very best we can, and that's all we can say we can do. I mean, honestly, we're not, in truth in advertising, we are not 100% locally sourced. It would be nearly impossible for us to do that. I mean, you know, think of the basics, the carrots, the cucumbers, and all that. Pineapples, not happening. It's not happening this side of Hawaii or Costa Rica. So, but we're also a little bit, you know, we use less of that in an item as opposed to local cantaloupes and local honeydew or whatever we can get our hands on. So it's the best we can do at any given time at any point in the season. We don't purposely go crazy with our phrasing and say that we are 100, you know, we don't make that commitment out loud so that we know that if we have to make a modification that it's not, you know, it's within our best effort to do so. So, but I've got a pretty creative chef. Giuseppe's from Sicily. He's learned how to be adaptive and create things. And, you know, we utilize food the best we can. It's really neat to use. I mean, we're not breaking our own sides of cattle yet, but that would be something I would think in the near future. Maybe start smaller with pigs and go bigger to cows, you know. But it's an effort that the kitchen and everybody else that I see my sous chef bringing articles in about, oh, if you know, we made a honeydew basil, you know, soup shooter the other day because we had, you know, 10 pounds of leftover, you know, honeydew pieces from you know, carving something. So I think it takes creativity too. So, all right, I think I'm done. Finished? All right. Thank you for having me, folks.